Continuing on with Chapter 4. From Arcana Celestia 6013. The inmost or third heaven is the heaven of innocence. The middle or second heaven is the heaven of charity, in which there is also innocence from the inmost heaven. And the ultimate or first is the heaven of truth, in which there is charity from the second heaven, and in this again, innocence from the third. From Heaven and Hell, number 33. It is of importance to know that it is the interior states of their minds which cause the angels to be of this or that heaven. By how much those interior states are more open to the Lord, by so much as they are in interior heaven. With every angel and spirit, as well as with every man, these interior states consist of 3 degrees. They who have the 3rd degree open are in the inmost heaven. If the 2nd or only the 1st degree be open, they are then either in the middle or in the last heaven. The interior states of their minds are opened by the reception of the divine goodness and the divine truth. They who are so affected by divine truths as to admit them instantly into their lives, who thus admit them into their wills and thence bring them into act, are in the inmost or 3rd heaven. And they are there according to their reception of goodness from their affection for truth. But they who do not admit truth instantly into their wills, but first into their memories, and from this into their intellects, and thence into their wills, and then bring them into act, are in the middle or 2nd heaven. But they who live morally and believe in the divine essence, and yet are not so earnestly desirous of instruction, are in the ultimate or the 1st heaven. The conclusion, therefore, is that the states of the interior faculties are heaven, and that heaven is within everyone and not out of him. This the Lord teaches. Quote, "The kingdom of God cometh not with observation, neither shall they say, Lo here or lo there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you." Heaven and Hell, number 34. There is an increase in every perfection towards the mind's interior states, and a decrease towards the exterior. For the former are spiritually nearer the divine essence, and in themselves purer, and the latter are more remote from the divine essence, and in themselves denser. The perfection of angels consists of intelligence, wisdom, love, and goodness of every kind, together with the happiness that flows from them. But not inner happiness without them, for this would be external and not an internal happiness. But the angels of the innermost heaven have the interior states of their minds open to the 3rd degree, and therefore their perfection surpasses immensely that of the angels of the middle heaven, who have theirs open to the 2nd degree, and these again excel in perfection the angels of the last heaven. From Heaven and Hell, number 37. Although the heavens are thus distinct from one another, so that the angels of one heaven cannot associate by intercourse with the angels of another, the Lord cojoins them all by an intermediate as well as by immediate influx. By an intermediate influx from himself into all the heavens, and by immediate influx from one heaven into another. The effect which he produces by this is that the 3 heavens together form a one, which from the first down to the last are all in connection, and that there is nothing unconnected. Were it possible for anything to lose the connection which it has by intermediates with the first, it could not subsist and would be dispersed and annihilated. From Heaven and Hell, number 38. He who knows not how the divine order is constituted in respect to its degrees will find it impossible to comprehend in what manner the heavens are distinct, or in fact what is meant by the internal and the external man. In the world, most persons have no other notion of interior and exterior states of life, or of a higher and lower, but as of a continuity of state, or as if they were blended together and pass by continuity from purer into denser. But interior and exterior states of life are not so constituted. They are not continuous, but discriminated. Degrees are of two kinds, continuous and not continuous. The former are constituted like the degrees of light, which light decreases in intensity according to its distance from the flame, until at last it is lost in obscurity. Or they are like degrees of visual distinctness, decreasing from the object which are beheld in the light to those which are in the shade. Or they are constituted by the degrees of purity in the atmosphere from its lowest to its highest point of elevation. Distances determine these degrees. But between degrees which are not continuous, there is a discrimination, such as is between the antecedent or the consequent, or such as is between the cause and the effect, or the producer and the product. He who will be at pains to explore will discover that throughout the whole world, with everything which it contains, there are such degrees of production and of composition, that one is a producing cause of the other, and that the other of a third, and so on. No man, without acquiring a perception of these degrees, can know anything of the distinctions between the heavens, or between man's interior and exterior faculties, or between the spiritual and the natural worlds, or between the spirit of man and his body. Not knowing these, it will not be possible for him to understand correspondences and representatives, what they are and whence they are, nor what influx is. Sensual men do not comprehend these distinctions, for with them these degrees are held to increase and decrease by continuity. Hence they have no other conception of a spiritual state than as of a purer natural state, and on this account they do not enter the temple, but stand without, far removed from intelligence. And Heaven and Hell, number 39. It is permitted me to mention a certain secret truth concerning the angels of the three heavens, which has never yet been suggested to the mind of anyone, because no one has hitherto understood the distinction of degrees. Every angel, as well as every man, has an inmost or supreme degree, or a certain inmost or supreme state of life, into which the Lord's divine essence is first of all, or proximately, influent, and from which he arranges the other interior degrees of life, which they have in succession according to the degrees of order. This inmost or supreme state of life may be called the Lord's entrance to an angel and to man and his various habitation with them. By this supreme state, man is a man and is distinguished from brute animals, which have it not. It is this which enables man, and in this respect too he differs from animals, to be raised, and as to the whole of the interior states of his rational and natural mind, by the Lord to himself, and also to believe in him, to be affected with love towards him, and in this way to see him. From this source, man derives his capacity for receiving intelligence and wisdom, and his power of discoursing from reason. It is the cause also of his living forever. But what arrangement and provision are made by the Lord in this inmost state of life, no influx whatever into the perception of any angel can unfold, for it is in a sphere above his thought and transcends his wisdom. From Arcana Celestia 5.1.4.5. The interior states of man are distinguished from one another by degrees, and to each degree there is a boundary which separates it from the degree below, and this is the case from the inmost to the outmost. An interior rational state of the mind constitutes the first degree, and in this degree are the celestial angels, or the inmost or third heaven. An exterior rational state of the mind forms the second degree, and in this degree are the spiritual angels, or the middle or second heaven. An interior natural state of the mind forms the third degree, and in this degree are good spirits, or the ultimate or first heaven. An exterior natural or sensuous state of the mind forms the fourth degree, and in this degree is man. These degrees in man are most distinct from one another, and it is from this ground that man, if he leads a good life, is, as to the interior states of his mind, a heaven in its least form. In other words, his interior states of mind correspond to the three heavens, and for this reason it is that, supposing him to have led a life of charity and love, he can after death be translated even to the third heaven. This, however, cannot be effected unless all the degrees in him be well terminated and be, by their boundaries, distinct from one another. For when they are so terminated, or when by their boundaries they are distinct from one another, then each degree is a plane in which goodness inflowing from the Lord rests, and where it is received. Without these degrees as planes, goodness is not received, but is transfluent as through a sieve or a perforated basket, even to the sensuous degree, and there, not having been directed in its course, it is changed into impurity and filthiness, which yet appears to be actually good to those immersed in them. In the sensuous degree it is turned into the delight which arises from the love of self and of the world, and of a consequence, delight of hatred, revenge, cruelty, adultery, or into mere voluptuousness and luxury. Such are the results where the states of the will in man have not their termination in one or other of the middle degrees, or where the planes are perforated. It is possible for a man to ascertain whether or not he has these boundaries and the planes that are formed by them, for they are indicated by perceptions of goodness and of truth and of conscience. They who have the perceptions of goodness and truth, as the celestial angels have every degree from the first to the last terminated, for without such boundaries there can be no perceptions. They who, like the spiritual angels, have conscience, have each degree from the second or third to the last terminated, their first degree being closed. It is said their second degree or their third, because conscience is twofold, interior and exterior, the former being a conscience founded on spiritual goodness and truth, but the latter a conscience founded on justice and equity. Conscience itself is an interior plane which is a boundary to the influx of the divine goodness. They who have no conscience have not any interior plane to receive the influx, so that with them goodness flows through even to the exterior natural or sensually natural state of the mind, and is there turned into filthy delights. True it is that occasionally such persons feel a pain, as if it were a pang of conscience, and yet it is not really conscience which produces it, but it is nothing more than a pain which arises from the privation of some delight or other, as a loss of honour, gain, reputation, life, pleasures, or the friendships of others like themselves. And this pain is a consequence of the boundaries being in such delights. In the other life, it is more essentially discernible whether the states of a man's will have or have not been terminated. When they have been terminated, there is a zeal for spiritual goodness and truth, or for justice and equity. For such persons had been doing good for the sake of goodness, or for the sake of truth, and had acted justly and equitably for the sake of justice and equity, uninfluenced by the hope of gain or of honour, or by any other unworthy motive. And from Conjugal Love 413. Many suppose that infants remain infants in another life, having immediately after death become angels. But such is not the fact, for a man becomes an angel by intelligence and wisdom, and as infants do not possess these so long as they remain infants, although they are associated with angels, they are not themselves angels. They become angels as soon as they become intelligent and wise. Infants therefore progressively advance from the innocence of infancy to the innocence of wisdom, that is, from external to internal innocence. It is this internal innocence which is the end of all their instruction and progress, and having attained to this, then the innocence of infancy is annexed to it, which in the meanwhile had served as a plane for its production.